Hi, everyone. In the history of the Orthodox Church, there have been many people who have been celebrated for their contribution to the hymnography of the Orthodox Church, whether in terms of the liturgical poetry or because of the music itself. One only needs to think of St. Cassiani, who we know, of course, from Holy Week and some other places as well, or perhaps St. Romanos the Melodist. But there are many others besides these two, and one of the ones that is perhaps a little bit under the radar and should be more celebrated, we commemorate on January 20th. And his name is St. Ekvtime the Confessor. Now, Ekvtime was born in 1865 to pious parents Solomon and Marta. And about the age of 15, he went to Tbilisi looking for work. While he was there, he gathered with some other like-minded Orthodox Christian men and founded what could only be called a theological book club. Now, around 1890, this club had developed to the point where they were able to purchase a print shop. And then for the next 25 years, they were able to produce many theological tracts that were dedicated to the uplifting of the people of Georgia and for their own theological edification, as well as trying to inspire the ancient Georgian chant, which had become somewhat lost, but yet St. Ekvtime was very, very interested in preserving and actually spreading. Well, this he was to do over the next course of his life, because being a musician and looking at the ancient manuscripts of the Georgian chant, he was able to transcribe many of them into modern Western notation. And in fact, later in his life, after a period of hostilities, he turned over a number of chant manuscripts that he had transcribed, as well as the original chants themselves, to the State Library of Georgia around the year 1935. He had these buried in metal containers for a while so that the communists would not find them, and as it turned out, there were well over 5,200 manuscripts that we are beneficiaries of even today. Now, his life was not terribly easy during that initial time period when he was in Tbilisi, but around the age of 47, he decided that he was going to embrace monasticism, which is something he had always prepared himself for. And so, with the blessing of his spiritual father, he was tonsured a monk, and then just a couple of years later was made a hierodeacon, and he spent perhaps 4 years in that office before finally being made a priest. Well, of course, the years 1913 to 1921 became very rough in Georgia as the communists slowly moved in and began trying to eradicate anything religious and specifically Orthodox, including the tearing down, the destruction of the Cathedral of St. David. Well, there were a lot of priests during this time that were struggling to survive. Many monasteries underwent terrible hardships. And in fact, one priest that was trying to sneak food to these particular monks in a particular monastery was shot dead by the communists for simply breaking a curfew. All he was trying to do was feed his brethren, yet the communists were having none of it. Several metropolitans were killed, including all of the priests underneath them. Somehow, St. Ekvtime flourished. He did the best he could during all of this time and was someone who was still dedicated in the propagation of Georgian chant and, of course, the rich tradition of Orthodox theology. After a while, the bad period with the communists in the early 20s subsided a little bit. He was allowed perhaps a little more freedom, but even towards the end of his life, as some nuns were taking care of him. In the year 1944, they had not seen him for a while, and one of the nuns who found him, this remarkable man and abbot of a monastery himself by that time, was very disoriented and lay dying. And in fact, not long after that, he gave up his soul in peace to the God whom he so diligently served his entire life, leaving behind a rich legacy. In fact, many in Georgia believe that it was through the efforts of St. Ekvtime that the heritage of Georgian chant survived to this day, and in fact now is flourishing once again. After his repose until the year 2003, the Holy Synod of the Georgian Orthodox Church declared that St. Ekvtime was worthy to be counted among the saints, and his legacy indeed definitely lingers on long after his repose. Because of this wonderful man, anyone who listens to or ever has participated in the singing of Georgian chant knows what a wonder it is. And they can offer thanks to God for the man who tried his best to preserve it his entire life through great difficulties, through threats against his life, which is one of the reasons he's now called the Confessor, but most of all because of his dedication to our Lord Jesus Christ, with whom no doubt he is continuing to supplicate, even unto this day, for all those who honor his memory and who are themselves dedicated to Christ. Bye-bye.